Part 20. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 191. Headquarters of the Navy. At this moment, the Navy is fully monitoring every move on the sea. Once a powerful force emerges, it will be the first to suppress it. Adopt a wait-and-see attitude towards the forces that have already taken shape. As long as they don't move on their own 1/3 of an acre, the Navy will not take the initiative to provoke them. After all of those forces are giant-level existences. If it wants to eradicate it, I am afraid that the Navy will also have to break its bones. This is not what Sengoku wants to see. Especially now, the accelerated pace of the Revolutionary Army has given the Navy a sense of urgency. From time to time, war reports came from the fringe areas, which made people more aware of the strength of the Revolutionary Army. And these revolutionary armies were quite cunning and did not confront their navy head-on. Strength, power, plus caution. This is a very difficult opponent. It's like a poisonous snake hidden in the dark, calmly watching everything. At the first opportunity, he will rush out with lightning speed and bite the enemy hard. It's hard to prevent. For such an opponent, the warring states can only tighten up their defenses and secretly investigate the lair of the Revolutionary Army. Then annihilate it in one fell swoop, forever, and eliminate the aftermath forever. Although the idea is so, Sengoku knows it doesn't happen overnight. At present, they can only deal with each other. When he sat in the position of naval marshal, Sengoku realized that many things were involuntary and the gains and losses of various choices. Because of his order, it is possible to bring victory to the battle, or it is possible to fall into the abyss from which there will be no return. Sengoku sat in a chair and looked at the pile of materials and intelligence on the table. These are all things that need to be dealt with by him. Report. Just then, a Navy officer outside the door shouted loudly, "Come in." Sengoku's words came out, and a Navy man walked in, stood in front of Sengoku, and reported loudly. "Report, Marshal Sengoku. What's new?" "Arthur and his party have left the island, and their whereabouts are unknown. If there is anyone on the sea who deserves special attention from the warring states, there is only one. Arthur. This man has many powerful partners and is an unfathomable man himself." Sengoku, who had dealt with Arthur several times, was well aware of his horrors. There are endless levels of powerful abilities, and every time they meet, they will bring him new surprises. Even now, Arthur's existence is like a mountain, putting a lot of pressure on him. Sit in the position of the admiral and look ahead. Arthur on the other side looked down on him as if he was sitting on a cloud. It seems to be within reach, but it has a distance that can never be crossed. But the only thing that's gratifying. Arthur found it a small island. Spend most of the time inside the island and rarely go out. But one thing is for sure, every time you go out, you will set off huge storms and waves on the sea. Last time, they were directly bulldozed by the Navy headquarters. It was one of the Navy's darkest moments. And now that the news of Arthur's departure from the sea was heard, Sengoku stood up from the stool at once. "When did you leave the island? Which direction did you go? Did anything else happen on the island before leaving?" The succession of 3 questions illustrates the eagerness of the warring states. Arthur's power is simply impossible to ignore. Report to the Marshal of War, this is the information that has been transmitted. The Navy in front of him shook his hands and handed the sealed folder in his hand to Sengoku. Sengoku took the folder and took a deep breath. He was afraid to see bad news for their Navy. But it has come to this point, and it must be faced. The sealed folder was opened, revealing a piece of paper and several photographs. The paper is simple but illustrates all the information. And the photos verify what was said. Seeing the information that came, Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief, slowly sat down on the stool, and studied it carefully. After a while, He handed the paper in his hand to a goat next to him. The goat took the paper in its mouth, chewed it slowly, and soon entered its stomach. Beast pirates. Could it be that Arthur is looking for the beast pirates? Knowing the battle that took place in the port, it was natural for Sengoku to have such a guess. The 100 beast pirates all sent people to provoke them to the doorstep, and Sengoku didn't think that Arthur would be so broad-minded, so he laughed it off. It's still so strong. Sengoku picked up one of the pictures on the table. The photo clearly captures the scene of the Void Excalibur killing Jack. Just looking at the picture in the photo, Sengoku can almost already imagine the scene at that time. It's so powerful that it's impossible to raise any resistance to it. It's an unimaginable force. I sighed alone for a while. Anyway, Sengoku has already made up his mind that he will never take the initiative to provoke Arthur. Raising his head, he looked at the navy that was still standing in front of him, and slowly ordered. Keep an eye on Arthur and his party, but don't get too close and don't tailgating. Just tell the people of the Navy branch to pay attention to it and check the situation in their own waters. Sengoku is now going to wipe out anything that angers Arthur. Otherwise, it would be really unbearable to give them such a shot from the Navy headquarters. Yes. After the Navy received the order, it immediately went down to make arrangements. Sengoku sat on the stool, still a little uneasy. Shouldn't we do both? Sengoku thought about it and finally vetoed his idea. Now, it is still necessary to find out where Arthur's party is going. And at the same time, the island of Oni in Wano country. This is Kaido's accommodation. Although Fu Hua killed Jack, he did not attack his men. And Arthur didn't have much interest in those little minions. So, the rest of the mammoth was lucky to survive. Seeing his captain Jack being killed with one move, his brain went blank in an instant, and he lost the ability to think. By the time he came back to his senses, some of Arthur's men had long since left. Such a major incident occurred, and it was naturally reported to Kaido as soon as possible. In fact, they don't have to report at all. Since Kaido is going to use Jack as a guinea pig, he is already prepared. Through the film and television phone bug, the process before and after is clear. For the people around Arthur to have very strong power, this Kaido is no longer surprised. But when Jack bursts out with great power, Kaido instantly gets excited. This shows that this reagent is indeed useful. However, the power that had just burst out was extinguished by another force. Kaido's face was wonderful. Before the surprise completely dissipated on his face, a trace of consternation emerged. Both of these expressions appeared on the face at the same time, and it looked a little funny. How is it possible to have such a great power and still be destroyed? Kaido couldn't believe it, and a loud roar shook his surroundings. However, then, Arthur and his party were seen leaving the island. The destination is self-evident. Are you going to fight me to the death? Kaido's eyes flashed with a grim look. Arthur, who was being waited for by Kaido and Sengoku, was sitting leisurely on the deck of Hyperion at the moment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 192. On the Hublian deck, Arthur sat on the side of the ship wearing a sun hat. Holding a fishing rod in his hand, he is leisurely. This time to go to the country of Wano, Arthur was not in a hurry along the way. Anyway, Wano country won't run away there, so you can just enjoy the scenery along the way. Captain, did you catch any lovely fish? Delissa walked over from the side, tilted her head and asked softly. Hee, no matter how cute you are, not as cute as you, Teresa. Teresa smiled sweetly, her arms like lotus roots strained slightly, and she sat on the side of the boat like Arthur. The sea breeze blows gently, and the calm sea ripples. Captain, can you give Teresa a taste of your blood? Teresa turned her head suddenly, a look of longing in her red eyes. Don't always think about drinking my blood, okay Teresa? There was a hint of helplessness in Arthur's tone. But the captain smells good, and it's better than blood. I really said something scary in a cute tone. Am I your food? Arthur looked at Delissa seriously. After all, wanting to drink his blood from time to time feels like a spare food. Captain, why do you think that? Teresa looked at Arthur in shock, as if she had heard something incredible. The two men sat side by side, turning their heads to each other and staring at each other. Looking at the sparkling eyes, Arthur felt that it was not impossible to meet Teresa's request. After all, it's so cute, it's hard to refuse. All right then, be gentle with me. I really didn't expect that this sentence would one day come out of Arthur's mouth. This made Rita, who was lying in the chair next to her, almost burst out laughing. Don't worry, Captain, Teresa will be very gentle. Delisa nodded very seriously, her eyes full of anticipation. Arthur reluctantly lifted his right hand and extended his index finger. Whew! Teresa opened her mouth and bit down gently. The expected pain didn't come, but Arthur noticed that the look in Teresa's eyes was a little brighter. Every now and then make some cute sounds. In just a dozen seconds, Teresa gently let go and inhaled with satisfaction. It's really delicious, thank you Captain for your hospitality. At this moment, Teresa gave Arthur a strange feeling. It used to be like a flower bone, but now it's in full bloom. In return, the captain must not have tasted what his own blood tasted like. Teresa said, with a faint smile on her face, and wrapped her arms around Arthur's neck. A touch of warmth gradually spreads outward. Arthur directly let go of the fishing rod in his hand and slowly tasted the snack brought to his mouth. After a long time, they separated. How's that going, Captain? Isn't your blood delicious? Delissa asked curiously, tilting her head. Compared to my own blood, Teresa makes me wonder what it tastes like. Unexpectedly, as soon as Arthur's words fell, Teresa stretched out her index finger with an embarrassed look. Then please taste it, Captain. Looking at the white fingers in front of him, Arthur shook his head. Forget it, I don't have the magical ability of you. When I suck blood, I can make the other party feel no pain, and there will be no wounds. Arthur shook his head. If the captain likes it, a little pain Teresa can endure. Teresa looked at Arthur very seriously. Okay, I got it. Holding the lovely face in both hands, Arthur smiled. Captain, dinner is ready. The hatch opened, and May leaned out of her apron and shouted. Okay, got it? Arthur nodded, then lifted Teresa off the side of the ship. Let's go to dinner first. Teresa nodded, and the two of them walked into the cabin together. Women are still very concerned about their figures, even Mei is no exception. So dinner was much lighter. Arthur didn't care about this either. After all, even if it's a light meal, it's delicious to make. What's more, there is a small stove specially opened for him. The captain who feels sorry for them has worked hard day and night, and he must make up for it. The square dining table can accommodate everyone. Dinner was served in a very pleasant environment. Late at night, Arthur lay alone in bed, his eyes looking through the faint light at the ceiling above. The head is full of questions. After dinner, of course, it's a pleasant time to exercise. But alas, everyone has plenty of excuses for Arthur to leave the back of his head. It's strange, is my charm diminished in an instant? Arthur was puzzled. And just then, a small figure came in. Her white hair shimmered in the light. There was a mischievous smile in the red pupils. Captain. A soft voice with a certain call, gradually approached. Did the captain sleep? Suddenly ringing in my ears. I'm waiting for you, Teresa. Arthur smiled. At this time, it seems to have understood why such a thing happened. It turned out that all the time was left to Delisa. It's really empathetic. Arthur's heart was filled with emotion. He. Teresa smiled and jumped up slightly. Which form does the captain prefer? Teresa said, turning slightly. A nun dress wraps the whole body tightly. Valkyrie, oath. Turn around again. Her white hair turned pink and she had a pair of fox ears on her head. Sakura fire will dance. These two should not be very attractive to the captain. As soon as the voice fell, it changed again. Stargazing at night and the first embrace under the moon. The four forms have four different feelings. Do you still have to choose? All of them, of course. Captain, you're really greedy. The sound of laughter was instantly suppressed and replaced by another beautiful singing. High and low with each other, euphemistic and beautiful. The Honkai theme is too niche, and not many people watch it. Alas. Tired? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 193. In the early morning, a ray of sunlight spilled through the gap in the curtain and shone on Teresa's head. The white strands of hair sparkled in the sunlight, with a kind of misty dream. Arthur bowed his head slightly, looked at Teresa who was still asleep, and reached out to smooth out her somewhat messy hair. Although the movement was very gentle, it seemed to still make a noise to Teresa. The little head arched slightly, found a comfortable position, and fell into a deep sleep again. It's a bit of a mouthful. A faint murmur came out of Arthur's mouth, and a smile curled into the corners of his mouth. At this time, it seems that smoking a cigarette is more appropriate. However, the smell of the flue is really a little choking, and it will not be good if it wakes up Teresa because of it. With his fingers gently roaming back and forth, Arthur opened the system interface. The friendship points above are still a little bit close. It is estimated that it will only take 2 or 3 days. The door gently opened, and Mei walked in. Captain, are you awake? I wanted to take a little look, but I didn't expect Arthur to wake up. You know, that's about the time I wake up every day. Although Arthur's sleep time is irregular, the time he wakes up is still very accurate. Under normal circumstances, around 6 o'clock in the morning, you will naturally wake up. It doesn't matter if you sleep at 2 or 3 a.m. Even if you don't sleep all night, the next day you will be in good spirits. With a gentle smile on her face, Mei walked gently to Teresa's side. It's so cute even when you're asleep. Captain, don't move, it's easy to wake up Teresa. Seeing Teresa slowly writhing with Arthur's hand, Mei said dissatisfied. Good, good. Arthur said that he was about to take it away, but this was grabbed by the other hand. Teresa, are you awake? Looking at Teresa who was holding his hand, Arthur asked softly. How can you still sleep, Captain? The closed eyes opened, and there was still laziness in Teresa's gaze. It was a really enjoyable night. Teresa sat up slowly, stretched slightly, and turned her head to look at Arthur. The captain worked so hard, and Teresa really couldn't help but want to praise it. It's better to act than to move. Arthur smiled. Then reward made to the captain. A sly smile flashed in Teresa's eyes, and she pushed Mei, who was standing next to her, to Arthur. But he began to slowly clean up. Mei was originally mine, do you still need a reward? Arthur rolled his eyes. But now it's time to get up and wash up. Half an hour later, Arthur and Teresa appeared in the living room. At this time, Rita also prepared the meal and brought it to the table. Others also came out one after another. Everything was just right. How is Teresa? Did you sleep comfortably last night? Seeing Teresa, Kiana walked over with a wicked smile on her face. It's okay. Teresa glanced at Arthur with some embarrassment. Ahem, eat. Arthur coughed lightly and feigned seriousness. He. Kiana smiled and began to concentrate on destroying the food in front of her. After more than half an hour, Arthur sat down on the sofa with a full meal and drink. "AI, how long is it until the destination?" A light curtain ejected out in front of him. AI appeared, thought for a while, and said softly, "If we had followed the safe pace of Hubble, it would not have taken a day. At the current speed of sailing, it will take about 5 days." Arthur nodded. "Just a little bit faster, just get there in 3 days. If you spend too much time on the sea, it is not interesting." "Okay, Captain." After AI finished speaking, Hubilian's speed increased a little. The days that followed were more ordinary. Occasionally play chess, go fishing, and have a swimming competition if you are interested. Looking at Rita's vigorous posture in the sea, Arthur also jumped down and played for a while. And in the process of moving forward, the character fragments are finally enough again. Teresa was promoted to SS rank. Unlocks the execution outfit Aster and Carol of Divine Grace status. The part of the execution suit and top is made of highly elastic material. The skirt armor is made of heavier protective armor. The spikes on the skirt will turn into sharp blades that will shred enemies when Deliza moves. The Carol of Charity has a holy white garment and a modest dress. The two forms have two very different feelings. And at the same time to the headquarters of the Navy. Report to the Marshal of the Warring States, it has been investigated. A Navy stood in front of Sengoku, stretched out his hands, and placed a map on the table. This was the route of Arthur's group. Sengoku looked at the markings on the map and instantly confirmed what he had in mind. Hugh Bryan was driving in the direction of the country without any cover, straight for the country of Wano. Now that we have walked most of the distance, it is easy to see it. Sure enough, I'm going to find the 100 Beast Pirates. Sengoku's eyes showed a thoughtful look, and his expression gradually became excited. According to the information we had before, this time Arthur definitely did not have a friendly purpose. If you take advantage of this opportunity to severely damage or destroy the 100 Beast Pirates, then the turmoil in the sea will subside a lot. There are countless weapons that flow out of Wano country every day. This is also one of the reasons for the chaos of the sea. General Polisalino, I have a mission for you. After thinking for a while, Sengoku picked up the phone bug. And on the island of Oni in Wano country. Arthur did not hide his tracks, and Kaido naturally received the news. Is it already coming, Arthur? Kaido's massive body stood up from his seat, surrounded by a heavy momentum. Strode out. A day later, repair glass and sailed into the realm of Wano country. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 194. Wano country is a relatively special country. Although it is a powerful country, it does not join the world government, so even warships cannot enter. They have their own system. The top leader of Wano province is called Shogun, and the top leader of the region is called Daimyo. And at this time, it is in the sky above Wano country. A toothless pterosaur flies. He is none other than Ember, one of the three major disasters of the 100 Beast Pirates. Dragon fruit, ancient species, toothless pterodactyl form. A rare animal-based ancient devil fruit that can transform into a toothless pterosaur and fly in the sky, and is one of only 5 animals in the animal line that can fly. At the same time, it also has great strength, excellent resistance to blows and superb mobility. The purpose of this outing was to receive Kaido's order to snipe Arthur and his party. The figure flashed in the sky, and rushed out in an instant. This caused many people in Wano country to look up in the direction of Ember's departure. Full of doubts. After all, a big man like Ember would not normally appear outside. And at the same time, on the deck of the Hyperion. Captain, are we almost at our destination? Looking at the huge waterfall in front of him, Arthur nodded. Wano country does not have an open sea coast, and there are only cliffs and waterfalls around. If you don't know how to do it, other people won't even be able to enter Wano country. But all this was no problem for Hugh Bryan. Let's go back to the cabin, ready to take off. After several days of sailing, it finally came here. Arthur was the first to walk into the cabin, followed by the others. AI-chan, airplane mode activated. AI-chan received. The shape of the driving Hyperion gradually changed, and finally it soared into the sky. In the sky, the entire country of Wano comes into view. The main island of Wano country is divided into 6 areas: Kuri, Nozomi, Rabbit Bowl, Suzugo, Hakumai, and Hanaku. Each area has its own unique character. Is this the country of Wano? Rita looked at the image displayed on the big screen, her brow furrowed slightly. Here, 2 groups are clearly formed. The poor die of poverty, and the rich flow of oil. You can tell the difference just by looking at what you wear. A picture shows the current state of the country. The current ruler of Wano country is not a man who loves his people like a son. Arthur's chin rubbed with his right hand. Maybe his coming this time will be a good thing for the people of Wano country. At least they can be rescued from the current tyranny. Captain, there's a fast-flying object ahead. AI's voice came out, and the big screen in front of him suddenly changed. On the screen, a figure appeared rapidly flying towards them. Bella, look, it's a dragon. Seeing this toothless pterodactyl, Kiana's eyes widened instantly. It was the first time in the world that I had seen such a creature as a dragon. Kaido's man. A smile tugged at the corner of Arthur's mouth, and he immediately ordered. AI-chan, it's time to show off your skills. Beat this dragon down. With Hubarion's current firepower, Arthur felt that it should be okay to take out a dragon. AI-chan received. Look at the captain. Ember thought that Arthur and his party were still outside, but they didn't expect that they had already arrived in the sky above Wano country. Looking down at the huge battleship of Hyperion, Ember couldn't help but be surprised. But that's about it. He has absolute confidence in his own strength. Whoosh! Lasers erupted from Hyperion. Humph, weak attack. A flash of disdain flashed in Ash's gaze, and instead of dodging in time, he sped up. Just as the laser was about to hit his body flipped. Dodged the attack at the last moment. In the barrage formed by the laser, the figure flew up and down, showing great mobility. Haha, AI-chan, it seems that you are being underestimated. Within Hyperion, seeing such an obviously defiant attitude of Ember, Arthur couldn't help but laugh. Damn fellow. Love Sauce is angry. No matter how strong the attack is, if it doesn't hit, it will be meaningless. In front of the Ember, who has extreme speed, he can see through the direction of the laser's attack. It's a lot easier to dodge. Isn't this like a boss in the game? Coldly, Kiana suddenly came up with such a sentence. Seeing the puzzled eyes around her, Kiana pointed to the big screen in front of her and said, "Isn't that like a game?" Soon, everyone understood. Indeed, seeing the Embers dodging attacks on the screen from their position was like playing a game. Then let's have a game showdown. Arthur looked at Ember, who was still leisurely dodging the attack, and a strange smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Game duel. Yes, yes. Kiana nodded repeatedly. But then he said suspiciously. But there's only one Hugh Bryan, how can you play? It's simple, it's okay to buy a few more warships, although it's not Hyperion, but the firepower is definitely the same. With Arthur's current financial resources, buying 180 warships would be like playing. The legendary Arthur pirates wouldn't be able to do that kind of strength. It's so easy to dodge such an attack. Ember smiled coldly in his heart. I thought it was such a formidable opponent. That's the result. As long as he is in front, With his own powerful strength, he can easily tear the battleship in front of him apart. As he thought, his figure approached as he dodged the attack. Once you're in range of his attack, it's all over. And yet at this very moment, around Hyperion, two battleships emerged. With the addition of the Hugh Bryans, there are three in total. Of the two ships, Kiana controls one and Brynja controls the other. Three battleships marched side by side and attacked at the same time. Under the cover of firepower, it instantly became dense. What's going on? Ember was a little confused. How did you get two more battleships out of thin air? But the reality doesn't allow him to think about it anymore. The dense firepower made him unable to calm down again, and his wings shook, and he immediately avoided it far away. But the three ships were in hot pursuit, especially the one that Kiana was steering. It is the first to bear the brunt. Bullets poured out as if they didn't want money. Arthur stood in Hyperion and saw the scene before him. Sure enough, there is a sense of immediacy playing games. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 195. In Wano country, many people stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. His eyes were full of incredulity. What's that flying in the sky? In the sky, the three huge warships were like giant beasts, and no one recognized them. Flying ship. Some hesitated. Isn't that Ash-sama? Some people have already discovered the embers in the sky, and there is some doubt in their eyes. I don't understand what's going on at all. In the sky, three large warships, each in its own right, launched an attack on the embers. The dense barrage forms a powerful firepower network. Bursts of roaring sounds exploded in the sky, alarming countless people in Wano country. Ember, who was still at ease, is under pressure at the moment. The figure barely passed through the cracks of the barrage. Don't run, get hit by me. Inside one of the battleships, Kiana had already devoted herself to it. His eyes were glued to the embers that were dodging back and forth on the screen. As soon as you aim, it will attack immediately. However, in the face of the siege of three warships, although it was quite difficult to dodge, it was barely able to dodge. This made Kiana chagrined. Kiana called Brynja. After several minutes of pursuit, but without a single hit, Kiana finally remembered that there were two other friendly soldiers next to her. Brynja received. Brynja's voice came from the communicator. Brynja, we have to create opportunities like we do in the game to be able to hit in one fell swoop. When it comes to games, Kiana has a lot of experience. In his spare time, he will be connected to Brynja, and he is also a master of the game. Stupid Kiana, you finally get it? Brynja, who was sitting in the driver's seat, smiled with relief. Well, I'm not stupid. Kiana's complaining voice came from the communicator. I'll create a chance for you, Kiana, and the final blow will be handed to you. Brynja's serious words came out of the communicator, and the look on Kiana's face gradually converged. Understand, rest assured that I'll leave it to me. Brynja slowly pushed the thruster to the front. In an instant, the speed of the battleship will reach its extreme. So, the speed of the battleship, which was originally extremely fast, increased again at this moment. In an instant, he was directly in front of the embers. Super electromagnetic laser cannon fire. Everything happened so fast, and he didn't expect that a battleship of such a huge size would suddenly burst out at such a fast speed. In the huge cannon muzzle in front of him, the energy quickly converged, allowing Ember to sense the crisis. His eyes widened, and his figure rose to the sky. Seeing this scene, Brynja's gaze did not change in the slightest, and the energy of the muzzle was still converging. But it was too late to be launched. Fooled. Seeing this scene, a thought flashed through his mind, and in front of him, Hyperion appeared strangely, and the muzzle of the cannon emitted a dazzling light. Rumble. A pillar of energy light streaked across the sky, eclipsing the sunlight in the sky. A destructive aura enveloped the surroundings. This is not the main gun of the Hublians, just the secondary guns. Oops. Seeing such a powerful attack, Ash's heart was shocked. It turns out that the killer move is here. But at the moment it is no longer possible to continue upward. No matter how fast he was, he couldn't beat the flight of the pillar of energy. However, below, the super electromagnetic laser cannon is also poised to launch. The only thing that can be avoided is left and right. In an instant, Ember had already made a judgment. The body flew sideways in an instant. Ah, what a bad direction. Hublian, Arthur saw this scene, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Rumble. A huge pillar of energy light pierced through the sky, and the entire Wano kingdom was enveloped in it. Faced with Kiana's long-prepared momentum-ready blow, Ember's body was submerged in this pillar of energy light. It was completely reduced to ashes, and not a trace of scum remained. Haha, finally eliminated him. Kiana's excited voice came from the communicator. Good cooperation, come back. Arthur complimented. The 3 attacks were the most precisely calculated. In the face of the sudden approach of Brnya, coupled with the deterrent power of the super electromagnetic laser cannon, the embers don't dare to carry it. So all he could do was dodge. The barrage is full of sky, and only the upper part is a vacuum area. However, this is the best bait. Hyperion was already waiting there. Although the power of the secondary gun is not as strong as the main gun, it should not be underestimated. In the face of this sudden blow, only to dodge again. And the cannon fired by AI was not fired indiscriminately. Has faintly controlled the direction of Ember's next dodge. Everything was as expected. The next second, he was completely exposed to Kiana's attack range. A blow comparable to the Hublian main gun. What if it's an ancient species? The sheer force disintegrated his entire body into ashes. This is the end of the battle. Captain, Miss Ben is doing well. The 2 ships were recovered, and Kiana and Brnya also came over. Kiana tilted her head triumphantly. If it weren't for the opportunity that Brnya and AI-chan created for you, would you think it would be so easy to focus on the target? This. Of course Miss Ben knows. Kiana said, her excitement much lowered. Okay, it's all pretty good, let's go, it's time for us to go down. Arthur patted Kiana and Brenya's little heads as he spoke, and Hyperion headed down. At this time, the country of Wano was silent. Stared blankly at the mirror-like sky above, and didn't come back to his senses for a long time. If you don't remember it clearly, everything before is like a dream. The powerful ember was wiped out so easily. I just died. A low murmur sounded, and the entire Wano country exploded in an instant. Many people ran in the direction where Hyperion had landed, not afraid of death. I want to get a closer look at what killed Ember. And at the same time in the general's palace. This is the residence of the black charcoal serpent. The black carbon snake is currently the supreme ruler of Wano country. That attack is still deeply reflected in the heart of the black charcoal snake. If you can get that kind of power, then the rule of the country will be more consolidated. At this moment, infinite longing rose in the heart of the black charcoal snake. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 196. Captain, there is a suitable landing site below. AI's voice came from the communicator. Carry out the landing. Hublian descended slowly, and after a few meters above the ground, the hatch opened. Captain, there are a lot of people down there. You can see that a lot of people have gathered below, and there are countless people running towards the side from a distance. Sure enough, No matter where you are, it's human nature to watch the excitement. Arthur shook his head helplessly and jumped down. Others followed. The inhabitants of Wano country stared at Arthur with wide eyes. The practice here is to close the country to the outside world, and there is no communication with the outside world. Although Arthur was already famous in the New World, he didn't know anyone here. Arthur glanced around at the crowd, most of them dressed in tatters. It should belong to the poor here. The shape of the Hyperion has attracted a lot of attention. One by one, they gave out their eyes in amazement. There's no way out, Captain. The crowd formed a wall around them, and it seemed that it would not disperse for the time being. With a wave of Arthur's right hand, the Hyperion of the sky vanished. Where's the ship? Is this a trick? The huge battleship disappeared into thin air, again causing some commotion in the crowd. Get out of the way, you poor people. Looking at the surrounding walls, Arthur was thinking about how to get them to leave, when there was a commotion from outside. It's the guards of the city lord's mansion. Seeing the people from the city lord's mansion appear, everyone immediately moved out of the way. If you anger these people, they will be out of luck. A passage was made way through the crowd, and the leader of the guards glanced around with disdain. When he saw that there was only Arthur and his party on the other side, his brows furrowed. According to the words of the black carbon serpent, they were going to find the battleship, but now it was gone. Outsiders, where do you hide the things that fly in the sky? The leader of the guards looked at Arthur, his right hand already on the hilt of his sword. In this country of Wano, it has been a long time since outsiders entered. You're the black charcoal serpent's men? Arthur asked softly with a raised brow. Bold, dare to call the generals by their names, and take them down for me. The leader of the guards waved his hand, and the people around him moved instantly. A dozen guards surrounded Arthur. The long knife in his hand was clearly shaking, which made the poor people around him even more frightened and retreated. They are just ordinary people, and they have no strength to fight against the presence of weapons. Captain. May takes a step forward, but is stopped by Arthur's outstretched hand. In the face of these little minions, there is no need to make a move. The smile on the corner of Arthur's mouth gradually expanded, and the overlord color rose to the sky. After a long time, the power of the top overlord color has reappeared in the world again. The powerful overlord color was transmitted outward like a volcanic eruption, instantly enveloping the entire Wano country. This force is. In the island of ghosts, Kaido's body stood up instantly, and his eyes revealed horror. This powerful overlord color, even he is inferior. Arthur. Is this a war letter to him? Kaido's fists clenched, the light flashing in his eyes, strode out. And at the same time, the edge of Wano country. The powerful overlord color swept out, causing the people around to faint in an instant. However, this force did not subside, and the devastating and decaying were transmitted outward. The place that passed shook everyone's minds. The originally clear sky suddenly became turbulent. If you read a violent novel, go to Feel a Novel Network. The dark clouds converged, forming a huge vortex above the sky. Within the whirlpool, purple thunder flickered, enveloping the entire Wano country in a terrifying scene. It's like the end of the world. Now, take me to meet the black charcoal snake. The leader of the guards stood in front of Arthur like a sculpture, his eyes glazed over, and he was in a great shock. This is still Arthur's deliberate attempt to bypass the overlord color, but the trace of aftermath that leaked out was already blank in his brain. The strong oppressive force made his whole body dare not move in the slightest. It wasn't until a faint voice sounded in front of him that he woke up like a dream, and his eyes regained a little look. Mechanically turned, and walked out step by step. Captain, what are you going to do with that black charcoal snake? Kiana asked, confused. The purpose of their visit seems to be to find someone named Kaido. This is something that Arthur once mentioned. I'm a good person, so naturally I want to save the people of Wano country from fire and water. Arthur's righteous and awe-inspiring words made Kiana and the others roll their eyes. Along the way, Arthur gave a brief introduction to the black carbon snake. Described as a heinous villain. Although he was originally a badass. Now I understand, this time we're removing the tyranny. Talking and laughing, the general's mansion is already close at hand. And at this time, the black charcoal snake is also ready. Many samurai armed with long swords stood at the door. Up. Arthur waved his hand, and Mei and the others rushed out instantly. Such a little minion has been solved in 3 or 2 clicks. Kicked the closed door open, but they didn't expect the black charcoal snake to be waiting for them. The charge of trespassing on the general's mansion is not something you can afford. The black charcoal serpent's gaze flashed with a cold light, and its body began to change gradually, slowly starting to grow larger. The color of the skin also gradually darkens and darkens. Snakeheads emerge from their skin. In an instant, the form of the black charcoal snake changed dramatically. Snake fruit phantom beast species Yaki big snake form. Each head has its own consciousness. The 8 heads are green in color, the middle one is darker and has the appearance of a large black charcoal serpent, and the remaining 7 heads resemble dragons. In this form, the black carbon snake can attack enemies from all angles at different speeds and ranges, mainly by biting. It's terrifying. How did it become like this? Kiana shivered when she saw the Yaki snake flying wildly, and leaned towards Arthur with some disgust. Such an enemy will be handed over to you. It was clear that Kiana was reluctant to make a move. At this time, Mei volunteered to stand up. The long knife was drawn from his right hand, and the form on his body also changed at this moment. Lawgiver of thunder. Lose in the thunder. The cold voice was mixed with the thunder, and it went towards the Yaki snake. Yaki Orikai's defense is vulnerable to Mei's attack. A roar rang out, and finally turned into a mournful roar. The huge body fell to the ground with a bang. The huge heads, one by one, like a football rolling down a round end. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 197. Above the sea, a warship swayed forward. Showed considerable reluctance. On the deck of the warship, the yellow ape looked listless. When he heard that Sengoku said that he was going to be sent a mission, his heart was already dark. When I heard the content of the task next, I had a sad face. It turned out that he secretly went to Wano country to inquire about the actions of Arthur and his party. Although he had only been in contact with Arthur a few times, the yellow ape did not want to have anything to do with them from the bottom of his heart. It's too scary, and there's no sense of security standing next to it. But Sengoku didn't pay attention to the yellow ape's feelings, and hung up the phone directly after giving the order. The miserable yellow ape could only leave the naval headquarters 3 times in one step. Wandering off to Wano country. Hopefully, by the time I arrive, everything will be settled. The yellow ape thought expectantly. When the time comes, he just needs to report what he sees, and it's perfect. Report to General Polisalino, ahead is the realm of Wano country. A Navy officer walked over and reported loudly. Well, I see, drive a little slower. The yellow ape waved his hand weakly. At this moment, the powerful overlord color spread out, causing the heavens and the earth to change color. I'm a good girl. The yellow ape took off his sunglasses with his right hand and looked at the sky above. A huge vortex was mixed with thunder. The slowly turning vortex seems to suck the soul of a person into it. At this time, the yellow ape was really glad that he drove slowly. Otherwise, it is estimated that it will be just in time. He really didn't know what to do. General Polisalino, we. A Navy officer next to him asked cautiously. We'll go up again later. Naturally, the Navy knew how to enter Wano country. This overlord color comes and goes quickly, but it also goes quickly. After tens of seconds, it gradually subsides. Heaven and earth are back to normal again. Almost. Let's go. When the yellow ape came to Wano country, he saw a large number of people fainting on the ground. Really? There is no mercy in the attack. Dressed in the costume of an admiral, the yellow ape looked into the distance with a raised brow. There, a powerful aura was approaching. At the same time, inside the general's palace, Arthur took out several ninjas who were besieging him. These ninjas protect the safety of the shogun's mansion, but at this moment they have gone with their masters. It's a little, but it's better than nothing. After turning the entire general's mansion around and looting all the wealth, Arthur shook his head in some frustration. Now, billions of Bailey's wealth is no longer in his sight. What do you say about eliminating violence and peace? It turns out that the purpose of the captain is this. A faint voice came from the side. Aha, I'm robbing the rich and helping the poor, and I'm leaving. Arthur snorted, saw that Kiana wanted to continue to say something, gently patted her on the back of the head, and walked out first. Don't pat your head, you'll be stupid. Behind her, Kiana muttered dissatisfiedly. Captain, someone's coming. As soon as he left the general's mansion, the aura in the distance made everyone's eyes look over. A huge body walked slowly, and with each step, the ground trembled. Kaido was holding a mace with a sharp edge in his eyes. Arthur. A thick voice came out, like a muffled thunder, breathtaking. It's just that no one standing here is weak, and this bit of power is like a breeze blowing on the face, and it doesn't have any impact. You don't have to scream so loudly, you can hear it. Arthur plucked out his ears and looked at Kaido, who was standing in the distance. Arthur. This time, Kaido's voice was much lower. The skull was slightly lowered, and the overlord color spread out from his body. Is this to compete with me for the overlord color? Really? I don't know what to say. Arthur snorted coldly, took a step forward, and the overlord color in his body spread forward. In the next moment, the two overlord colors collided together. Rumble. Invisible forces turn into tangible damage. With the two of them at the center, it's like an atomic bomb exploding. The surrounding buildings were destroyed and bulldozed in an instant, and countless cracks in the hard ground spread outward. But Kaido's overlord color is the strongest, how can he compare to Arthur's? It only lasted a few seconds. Arthur. Kaido's muscles tensed, and he roared, raised the mace in his hand, and swung it at Arthur. Thundering gossip. In the sky, a huge thunderbolt surrounded the mace, carrying a huge force towards Arthur's head. Fu Hua, borrow your weapon and use it. Arthur's fists clenched slightly, and a pair of black and gold gloves appeared. The key of God, the grip of the void. Faced with Kaido's swing of this blow, Arthur did not dodge, but clenched his fists and confronted it head-on. Boom. Centered on the attack of the two, the shockwave that swept through everything spread outward. This once bustling street was completely reduced to rubble. A crater resembling a meteorite impact spreads outward, centered on Arthur and Kaido. A huge force rose into the sky, forming a pillar of energy light that soared straight into the sky. In the distance, the yellow ape watched the scene and snorted out of his mouth. Even if it was so far away, the power of the shock still made him empathize. Too strong to be matched. I'm still here, and it's safer to wait for them to finish the fight and then sneak over and see the results. The yellow ape said and nodded. And at the same time, inside the huge pit, 2 consecutive attacks were fended off by Arthur, although he had already expected it. But when the truth happened in front of him, it still made Kaido a little unbelievable. The overlord color of the whole body gradually converged on the arm. Makes the overlord color that emanates from all directions more solid. Overlord entanglement. Seeing Kaido's actions, Arthur raised his eyebrows, and a smile slowly appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Don't use your best strength too much, don't let me run this trip in vain." His hands were gently shaken with the grip of the void, and Arthur became a little excited for the first time in a long time. Known as the strongest creature on land, Kaido's strength is unquestionable. And Arthur may not have had a happy fight for a long time. At this moment, he abandoned other special abilities and simply competed with Kaido for strength. That's a worthwhile trip. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 198. Bang bang bang. The dull sound echoed around him, and the shocking power spread outward. Arthur and Kaido are surrounded by domineering and fists. Captain is really, an enemy that can be easily dealt with requires so much effort. In the distance, Kiana frowned in some confusion. Indeed, with the various abilities that Arthur now mastered, he could beat Kaido with any kind of use, but he didn't use it. Kiana was naturally quite incomprehensible. As for why, maybe only the captain knows. Rita chuckled softly and stared at the battle in the distance. Maybe the captain wants to find an opponent of equal strength and have a good fight. Fu Hua seemed to understand Arthur's behavior. That's why they often fight against each other when they're fine. What a strange captain. Kiana shrugged her shoulders and looked at the battle area together. Through the shockwave, it can be seen that in the beginning, the battle between Kaido and Arthur was still evenly matched. But as time passed, Arthur became more and more courageous, but Kaido declined. It's so powerful. Resisting Arthur's stormy attack, Kaido's face became more and more ugly. Each attack has 1,000 powers, and all of them have a very powerful piercing effect. The armament color he attached to his body didn't seem to have any effect. Powerful forces wreak havoc directly in the body. That's where the power comes in. After fighting Fu Hua for such a long time, Arthur naturally knew a little. Each blow carried an inch of strength, directly penetrating Kaido's exterior defenses. Damn! Kaido yelled. Facing such a situation, he could not bear it. Thundering gossip. Surrounded by the domineering power of the armed color and the domineering color of the overlord, the power of this blow is already Kaido's strongest at present. In the sky, huge lightning spread down. The same trick was used again. Arthur's eyes narrowed slightly, his fists clenched, and he attacked upward. Rumble. The earth, which was already full of desolation, was ravaged again. If you didn't know that there were beautiful buildings here, you thought you were in the middle of nowhere. Click. Kaido's eyes widened as he looked at the mace in his hand. At the point where they collided with each other, cracks spread outward. It's slow, but it's unwavering. Boom. The crack spread throughout the mace, and the next second it exploded. Reduced to splinters and scattered around. However, Arthur's fists did not stop there. A punch slammed into Kaido's stomach. Rumble. The powerful force directly penetrated Kaido's body, blasting the sky into a huge void. And Kaido's huge body, like a kite with a broken string, flew far away and slammed into the ground. The yellow ape in the distance saw the scene and couldn't help but shrink his neck in fright. If this punch hits him, I'm afraid he will be crippled even if he doesn't die. Looking at the direction where Kaido landed, he couldn't help but be secretly surprised. It is worthy of being called the strongest creature on land, and it can stand up after such a powerful blow. In the midst of a huge pit, Kaido was deeply embedded in the earth. With a slight flick of his fingers, he slowly stood up. At the same time, the whole body has changed. The huge body rises to the sky, and the body gradually becomes slender. The whole body is covered with cyan scales, and there are 4 claws under the abdomen. Fish fruit, phantom beast species, green dragon form. The green dragon that rose to the sky opened its mouth, and huge energy gathered in its mouth. Rumble. A breath erupted towards Arthur. Since you're going to use a skill, then I'm welcome. If it was with the strength of his body alone, Kaido would still be able to fight him for a while, but if he used his skills. A smile tugged at Arthur's lips. There will be real despair. The mouth breathes heat, the distance is several kilometers, and the power is so powerful that it instantly evaporates a mountain. But in the face of Arthur's ability to defy the sky, it is still not enough to see. The right hand drew a circle in mid-air, and a spatial passage blocked Arthur's way. The breath entered directly into the spatial passage without a trace of waves. I'll give it back to you now. The spatial passage in front of him dissipated, and suddenly appeared above Kaido. The previous breath came out of the spatial channel, and it hit Kaido's body with precision. Rumble. A huge explosion envelopes Kaido in its entirety. How's it going? It's not good to be attacked by yourself. Looking at the flickering fire in front of him, Arthur didn't think Kaido would be killed so easily. And so it is. Kaido's own defense is terrifying, even if he is hit by his own attack. His strong vitality and resilience make him have no worries about his life. But through this blow, Kaido has really understood. He was no match for Arthur at all. Maybe it can only be with the help of other forces. In Kaido's mouth, several bottles of potion gently shattered and slid down his throat. An inexplicable aura emanated from Kaido's body outward. This is... Arthur frowned, then shook his head in disappointment. Kaido, I didn't expect that even you have to rely on other powers. In the face of you at this moment, there is no mood to fight with you anymore. Rita, Mei, Kiana, I'll leave this big guy to you. Let's shoot together, don't waste time. An inexplicable aura emanated from Kaido's body, causing his already huge body to change again. Roar. A loud roar rang out of Kaido's mouth. The huge body flew in the air, and its appearance became even more hideous. The breath of the whole body, violent and chaotic. But it's really several times stronger than before. But he was greeted by... It's really a bad little worm, just lie down. The void spear burst out of the air. Lock onto the target, fire. Shells were fired from the muzzles of the guns raised by the heavily loaded bunnies. Clear the battlefield. Behind the blue night moon soul, a huge phantom appeared. Kuligara. The body of the lawgiver of thunder soared into the sky. Around Fu Hua, a faint flame diffused out, forming a vermilion bird, rising into the sky. In the sky, Bella turned into her body, and the four elemental powers spread around her. 11 I'll work hard. However, Teresa did not move, and stood next to Arthur. With the power of Teresa now, Arthur would not let her take risks. Especially against Kaido, who I fell into madness. Have you seen enough? I'll have to charge for it. In the face of the strength displayed by Kiana and her party, the yellow ape was completely stunned. Until a faint voice sounded. The yellow ape woke up from a dream, only to find Arthur already standing in front of him. In an instant, his face turned pale. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 199. Headquarters of the Navy. What's wrong with you, Yellow Ape? As he passed by the training ground, the Yellow Ape was stopped by Carp. Now Carp's life is really very leisurely, idle, and boring. Come to the training ground to teach these recruits, usually wandering around the naval headquarters. The warring states who watched it were also envious. No, I usually haven't said a few words to the Yellow Ape, but today I actually blocked in front of me with an arrow step. Seeing the Yellow Ape's blue nose and swollen face, he was amazed. Nothing, falling. The corners of the Yellow Ape's mouth twitched slightly, and he walked away quickly. Tut tut, the fall is really hard enough. Looking at the back of the Yellow Ape leaving, An inexplicable smile appeared on the corner of Carp's mouth. He didn't believe it, he obviously was beaten by someone. On this sea, there are very few yellow apes that can be beaten like this. A figure flashed through Carp's mind. Arthur. Maybe he is the only one who can make the yellow ape so temperamentless. And at the same time, inside the office of the admiral. What did you say? The general of Wano country, the black charcoal Orakai, is dead, and Kaido is also dead. Hearing what the yellow ape had reported to him, Sengoku suddenly stood up from the stool with disbelief in his eyes. Although there was some speculation at first, it was just to make Kaido suffer at the hands of Arthur. But I didn't expect to wait for such news. Yes, I saw it with my own eyes, and there can be a fake. The yellow ape touched the wound on his face as he spoke, and he couldn't help but show a painful expression. It's really ruthless. While in Wano country, the yellow ape found out that Arthur wanted to be elementalized and fled immediately. But for some reason, I couldn't move my whole body. Was beaten up by Arthur so hard. Also greeted him in the face. As a result, it has become what it is now, and it is estimated that it will not be able to return to normal for a while. What's that, Marshal of the Warring States, do you think this is considered a work injury for me? The yellow ape said expectantly, but the Warring States ignored him at all. Standing in circles and circles, he kept muttering two sentences in his mouth. The black charcoal serpent is dead. Kaido is dead. Although only 2 people died, Sengoku knew how much impact this incident had on the sea. The most important thing is that the country of Wano is now in a state of leaderlessness. This matter must be reported to the world government in person. Thinking of this, Warring States hurriedly passed by the yellow ape and walked out. Well, it's a lot of work. The yellow ape sighed decadently and left listlessly. And after the past few days, the arms dealers who have been trading with the 100 Beast pirates have noticed a trace of abnormality. Unable to contact any of the places, he immediately sent his men to investigate. This investigation shocked them instantly. News from Wano country that Kaido was besieged to death. Even the corpses were bombarded, and there was not even scum left. The news spread instantly across the sea, as if an earthquake had struck. In a sea of water, the Moby Dick was like a giant beast, crawling quietly. Whitebeard sat in a tall chair and clenched his fists. With the passage of time, the dark diseases in the body have become more and more obvious. It can be clearly felt. As he continued to use the power of the shock fruit, the power of the shock made his body worse and worse. Daddy, big news. In the sky, the Cyan Xianguang flame bird flew and landed on the ground and turned into Marco. With a hint of shock in his expression now, Marco delivered a newspaper to Whitebeard's hand. Kaido turned out to be. Seeing the contents of the newspaper, Whitebeard was also shocked and inexplicable. Although the newspapers did not say who besieged Kaido, Whitebeard already had a guess in his mind. The growth of Kaido's strength, he couldn't be clearer. At their level, the number of people no longer means anything. Only an equal presence can pose a threat. And on this sea, there is only one person with such strength. Gently putting the newspaper down, Whitebeard looked up into the distance. The sea is probably going to be unquiet again. In the crowd around him, a pair of eyes were fixed on the newspaper in Whitebeard's hand. There was a greedy look in his eyes. The power to defeat Kaido, as long as he obtains the dark fruit, he will take it for himself. In another sea area, the red-haired pirates formed by Shanks also have a lot of power. Since Roger's death, Shanks has also begun to take charge of himself, gathering his companions, and owning a world above the sea. On the bow of the boat, Shanks was looking at the same newspaper. His eyes narrowed slightly, not knowing what he was thinking. Because the news of Kaido's death spread, the sea instantly boiled. But none of this affected Arthur much. Moving slowly forward within the Hyperion, Arthur sat on the couch and looked at the system interface in front of him. It's been a few days since I left Wano country, and the friendship points are enough. Open the lottery page and click on 10 draws. Fragments of the characters appeared in front of him, and a smile curled into Arthur's mouth. After so long, it's finally time to get together. Open the Valkyrie warehouse, find Teresa, and click promotion. Next to her, Delisa, who was lying on the sofa and curled up in a ball, exuded a faint light all over her body. The body slowly levitated, and the light formed a cocoon of light that enveloped Teresa in it. After tens of seconds, the light gradually dissipated. A figure slowly floated down from mid-air. Twilight night, moonlight. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 200. Above the calm sea, Hyperion moved forward slowly. Naturally, there is no need to be too anxious about the return journey, and the mood of play is floating. Arthur, who was sitting on the sofa, gently touched Teresa, who was lying on her stomach like a kitten, with his right hand, and looked at the screen in front of him. Captain, it's been this kind of news for the last few days, and I feel like it's been a lively discussion. Mei Yi walked over from the side, and Shunda Arthur's gaze was over. It is a record of what has happened in the past few days. One of the most explosive news is naturally the incident about Wano country. And in the days that followed, the world government also made a move. Wano country is now leaderless. How could the world government not want to include it in its own territory? It's just that the country of Wano has a special geographical location, and if the world government wants to take it down, I'm afraid it will take a lot of effort. It's normal to be lively. Arthur smiled. After all, Kaido's influence is still very large. Especially in the underworld, there are contacts with various forces. Now, this important supplier has disappeared, and it is natural to fry. It's just that in this way, it cheapens another force on the sea. Germa 66. In many people's minds, it is a fictional evil army, but it does exist, and the Vince Mock family is the top of this organization. Germa 66 is the name of the Army of the Kingdom of Science, also known as War Expert, Army of Evil. It is a scientific combat force, active all over the world as a mercenary, able to cross the Red Clay continent, and has a strong and efficient combat strength. The Kingdom of Germa is the name of the only maritime country in the world that does not have a fixed territory. In peacetime, dozens of ships operated separately, but together they became a kingdom, and the people were almost all men and soldiers at the same time, forming the army of Germa 66, which was feared by the world. When Kaido, an important arms supplier, disappeared, other places were affected to a greater or lesser extent. The outcome of a war between countries is determined not only by numerical superiority, but also by superior equipment. The warring countries were suddenly out of stock, and the results were predictable. As a result, many countries turned their attention to the Germa army, which was active in the sea. Not too far from Hyperion, dozens of fleets lined up and moved forward. And in the center, on a castle-like battleship, several people are fighting each other. As the distance got closer, two men and a woman could be seen besieging a tall man. They are none other than members of the Vince Mock family. Is this your power, Niji? Geiji, the ruler of Vince Mock, who was besieged by Vince Mock, suddenly spewed out a wisp of gas from his black boots as he faced the attack coming at him. The speed of the body increased dramatically at this moment. Even if it was his own son in front of him, he was ruthless. The casserole's big fist struck Niji directly in the stomach. Boom! A dull sound echoed all around. Like a kite with a broken string, Niji was thrown far away. On the side, Leiju and Iji saw their brother being knocked away, and they had no intention of helping at all. Instead, the attack on their father was accelerated. This is the Vince Mock family. Great power is everything. Ha ha ha, come on, Leiju, Iji, let me see the results of your training during this time. The battle between the three people was merciless, and those who didn't know thought it was a fight between enemies. In the end, in the face of Vince Mokgeji's stormy attack, Iji and Reiju had only a hard time resisting. Bang bang. But he was bound to lose for a long time, and finally he was seized of the opportunity and knocked the two of them out with one punch. Vince Mokgeji wears a metal helmet and has long blonde hair, making him tall. It has a pointed black beard that slopes upwards and a small beard on a prominent chin. Tall, majestic, his three sons and daughters walk towards him. There is still some progress, but it is not enough, you have to become stronger. A thick voice echoed around, and the three of them stood side by side and listened carefully. Now, the new world pattern is changing, and it is an opportunity for our Vince Mok family to rise. A few days ago, Germa received a large number of orders. The content of the commission is nothing more than to let them go to a hostile country to create chaos or something. Some even put forward a demand for the destruction of a certain country. For such an order, Germa is the one who comes. Because they have the toughest army in the world. It has the most advanced technology. And his children are the most successful reformers. Its own powerful power, coupled with the assistance of technology, has the confidence to sweep everything. Keep training, the cruel world has no respite for you. Vince Mokgeji left this sentence and turned to leave. Iji shrugged his shoulders, glanced around, and beckoned to a soldier wearing sunglasses. You, come here. The soldier who had been standing straight strode in front of Iji. Looking at the expressionless soldier with sunglasses in front of him, Iji slowly moved his body. The last combo punch was on the soldier's body. The soldier stood there like a stake, and Renping's attack fell on him, silent. Dozens of seconds later, as if to finish venting, Iji stopped and waved. Go back to your post and go to the battlefield. The soldier, who was still dripping blood, turned around and strode back to his place. These soldiers are none other than Germa's clones, who have no emotions and absolutely obey orders. Let them die without hesitation. Report, a ship was spotted in front of us on the left. Just then, a soldier came running from a distance and reported loudly. Iji and Niji looked at each other and smiled. This made Leiju next to him sigh helplessly. She knew the bad taste of the two brothers. I guess the ship is going to be out of luck.